What's going on, everyone? In light of my previous videos talking about a mythic weapon and some of the mid-game progression tips around gear, which is one of the main goals in your path to end game viability, I wanted to just provide a few tips to maximize your overall gear as you go along. The first thing I wanted to mention is to, again, just quickly reiterate that the mythic weapon should be your number one priority. But, and this applies to every single gear piece, the S rank weapons and rings and accessories and armor pieces are not your bottleneck. If you look here, I have been summoning on the banner that includes Judgment Ring, Dragon's Breath Armor, Bloody Grail, which doesn't include Whisperer. And despite that fact, I'm sitting on two chests that I could choose one of the current rate up equipment, which means I could choose Whisperer if I want it, if that banner comes around, or I could choose Bloody Grail or Judgment Ring or whatever S rank gear that I want when the time comes. And so if you look at where I'm at in the Whisperer progression path, I'm actually sitting on 2+3 legendary Whisperers, 2+2 epic Whisperers, which means I need 4 more Whisperers as well as a bunch of gear pieces to reach my mythic tier. But I'm actually sitting on 2 Whisperers because I could use those chests at any moment. And each event that comes up will probably provide me another 2 Whisperers by the time I get the more important thing, which is the spare gear pieces. Yes, you're going to need duplicates, and you need a lot of them. But the real bottleneck is actually the spare gear pieces, weapons, rings, accessories, and armors that are going to give you the actual ability to upgrade further and further into that weapon, ring, or accessory. But I don't want you to get super laser focused in on, okay, I need to be pressing one ring or one accessory. Unlike the weapon, which should be your main focus for your overall build, and yes, you should be investing as much resources into the keys, and you should be investing as many resources into the weapon boxes as they come around in the events. Well, the weapon boxes are important because you're going to be summoning on oftentimes a banner that will provide you with all sorts of different S rank gears. And so you don't really need to worry about getting those S rank weapons because of the boxes. That's the key. And if you have too many, then you can always choose to pick up an S rank gear box instead of an S rank weapon box. But during that time, those keys are also giving you gear pieces such as rings, accessories, and armors. But one of the biggest things I see with a lot of people is, yes, no matter what, you should be trying to get to a mythic tier. But you shouldn't be stalling out your other progressions for your rings and accessories, such as keeping them at +0, for example, because of that. Why? Because when you reach a legendary level with a ring or accessories, you always have the option to level down, right? So for now, I can go ahead and revert the Divine Forge and then level down the rings to give me back the gear pieces that I used to upgrade it, and then use those on my mythic grind. And so while you're sitting around and waiting for that mythic piece of gear, yeah, you should be upgrading your other rings and other accessories because it's going to give you that little bit of boost. And yes, you should be farming every single key available because you're going to be getting a ton of spare gear pieces, and those are going to be what's bringing you to that mythic level way sooner. And in fact, one of the big things that I honestly didn't even pay attention to is if you look at the rates of some of these gear pieces, you could see that, and it might be easier just to pop on over to the limited secret chest. Well, the gear pieces, including the rings, actually have a higher drop rate than a lot of the other gear pieces. For example, if you look at the rings and accessories specifically, these combine to a 0.9% drop rate. If I were to just pull out a calculator here and then do a little bit of quick math, we've got, what is that? 10 gear pieces that are weapons. So if you do 10 times 0.075, you put it at 0.75%. So yes, there is a 0.75% to acquire your random epic weapons. There's a 0.9% chance to hit a ring, and a 0.9% chance to hit an accessory, and then a 0.45% chance to hit an armor piece. And this, again, kind of applies to all the other pieces across the board. We have 10 weapons. This is a essentially 2.25% chance, whereas the rings are, well, 2.7% chance. The accessories are 2.7 as well. So actually a slight higher chance to get rings and accessories as your pieces, which means you're actually going to be able to progress the rings and accessories before you get your mythic weapon. So as an example here, and I'm very close myself, I've got my Guardian's Ring at +3. I definitely have a lot more copies of Guardian's Ring. And I probably should have kept my other copies of Guardian's Ring because I'm getting very close to be able to get this to Mythic. And if I actually do the numbers and revert my Judgment Ring to +0, I probably do have the Mythic Guardian Ring already accessible. And this is just something that you're going to want to keep track of while upgrading your other pieces of gear, because you can always revert them and then double down on getting that Mythic piece of gear when the time comes. It's just a little bit of progression here and there. But the ultimate goal, and this applies to every single gear option, armor, ring, accessory, or weapon, are all going to be bottlenecked by the actual spare pieces of gear, which is why, and by the way, little side note there, it's because you get so many extra S rank weapon and gearboxes unlocked as you go along. But it's why basically everyone suggests that you need to be investing as many resources as possible into every single key and or gold legendary that appears. So if you see an option to pick up legendary keys, which doesn't really happen in the growth event, all that option, but if you see option to pick up gold keys for the black market growth or in your events, these are your number one priority because that is what's stalling you from getting your mythic gear. So be sure to prioritize them because that's going to be your number one boost in progression. Just a couple of tips here. I wish someone had kind of walked through this when I was earlier on in the game. So I figured I'd make a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.